we were talking about an old debate that I used to have all the time with my friends that did music or just fans of music, and we will always say what label, what group was the best. There were so many. Now, mind you, hip hop just celebrated 50 years. 50 years. So imagine all the groups that came out of there from the very beginning of hip hop, from the Run DMCs to the Beastie Boys to the 90s groups like Deathrow Records, Bad Boy Records, to the 2000s. We move forward to like Rockefellers and the Murder Incs. And we move forward even after that. The Young Moneys and all the, you name it. There's just so many labels. And this is pretty cool because in the past, we all saw what happened with the Billboard thing, you know what I'm saying? Where a few people decided who the greatest or the best of the best was. And some people were very upset. But you know what? No matter what list that you come up with, no matter what list you create, you're always going to have somebody that disagrees all the time. And in this situation, I think BET in this particular incident was kind of smart. They kind of took it to a vote. They said, okay, well, we'll let you guys vote. You have until this time to vote. And whoever gets the most votes, they are the winners. They had brackets and everything. I'm salty. I'm just learning about this because I would have definitely put in my vote. But I'm not even mad at the people who won. I think they definitely deserve it. So who am I talking about? In recognition of hip-hop's 50th anniversary, BET Digital, in partnership with Ambrosia for Heads, is celebrating the culture by hosting a bracket-style competition that allows you to determine hip-hop's greatest crew. Rather than having experts tell you who is the greatest of all time, this is your opportunity to collectively make the decision. After giving the opportunity to any and all fans to provide feedback on which crews should be included, 32 collective from different regions, styles, and generations have been selected, all fighting for the number one spot. When the final battle is over and the last vote is cast, you will have determined who is the greatest rap crew of all time. After more than a month of voting and over 30 matchups, the winner has been determined. Voters from around the country have decided Deathrow Family is the greatest rap crew of all time. The crew included Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Tupac Shakur, The Dog Pound, Warren G, DJ Quick, The Lady of Rage, and others, defeated the Wu-Tang Clan crew in the championship round to secure the top position. So before I even continue with the story, they mentioned Warren G in this. Now, technically, Warren G wasn't part of Deathrow Records, but he was always with Deathrow. If you guys don't know, he's related to Dr. Dre, and he teamed up with Death Row artists all the time. But he technically wasn't a member of Death Row Records. He was actually on the East Coast Def Jam Records. But anyways, this story kind of explains it, but I just wanted to throw this out there. Previously, Death Row defeated YMCMB, TDE, and MWA and the Posse during the first 4 rounds in a reverse order. Appearing on The Breakfast Club this month, Wu's Method Man said he was humbled to compete in the championship round while pointing to the fact that Death Row movement gained momentum years before the Clan. We had heard nothing like that before from the West Coast, said the esteemed MC. More than 30 years ago, the Death Row family formed after Dr. Dre, the DOC, and others left another crew, NWA and the Family. Dre, a co-founder of World Class Wrecking Crew and NWA, was an expert in evolution. By 1992, he had launched a new collective primarily composed of budding talent, including a lanky MC with a controversial flow, Snoop Doggy Dogg. The DOC, one of the top MCs in the late 80s, joined him as an orchestrator and songwriter following a career-altering automobile accident where his vocal cords were severed. Dre and Snoop debuted their incredible chemistry on the soundtrack single Deep Cover in early 1992. By the end of the year, Dr. Dre's solo debut, The Chronic, stood as an album not just emphasizing a respected rap artist's new chapter and sound, but as an assembled introduction to a new clique. Now, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember when Death Row first came out to the scene, or even when NWA was a part of the hip-hop when it first got launched. And I think they were huge to me. I was around for that. They were huge because they included swears in their albums and their music. And it was a trip because when you used to buy physical copies of something, cassettes, this is before CDs, cassettes, and even records, they didn't even have one of those labels on the corners that said, explicit, warning for swears or not. They didn't even have that. They had to create something to put it on there. So anyways, let me fast forward to the story. Snoop was front and center, appearing throughout the album. At the same time, Daz, Corrupt, RBX, Rage, Warren G, and Nate Dogg played key roles in a project that goaded Dre's former crew. Soundtrack against the post-Rodney King's Black Los Angeles and applied 20-year-old funk elements into hip-hop sonic that was rooted in the most cutthroat West Coast streets. Songs like Stranded on Death Row, Lyrical Gangbang, and the vinyl B-side, Puffin' on Bloods and Drinking Tanqueray, showed that Dre's new crew was more than the company formed by him, Suge Knight, Michael Harry O, Dick Griffin, and the DOC is the state of mind. Now, really quickly, I'm going to share a quick story. When the Dr. Dre album came out and the Snoop Dogg album came out and all that, people weren't really drinking Tanqueray like that, like around my neighborhood, right? We get what you could drink, right? Mind you, I was in a drinking age, but anyways, the people who could buy alcohol and whoever brought alcohol, Tanqueray was a big drink. And for a while, I used to drink some Tanqueray. So, and it was all because of the influence I got from those albums and Deathrow records. So anyways, fast forward. The movement grouped artists committed to their dreams and each other. They had stories, styles, and attitudes that stood apart from the general rap population, and they would succeed because Death Row was more than a label, it was a way of life. In the ensuing years, much like Wu-Tang Clan, individual Death Row crew members beyond Dre and Snoop became stars in their own right. Daz and Corrupt's The Dog Pound became a multi-platinum chart-topping group. Rage scored a soundtrack hit with Afro Puffs, and Warren G and Nate Dogg made a smash hit with Regulate. Warren, who is Dre's half-brother, found his success away from Deathrow Record Company, but his lineage represented the crew, including key contributions to Snoop's Doggy Style debut. By the mid-1990s, non-homegrown talents joined the movement. Snoop's friendship with Tupac led the soundtrack and movie appearance from Pac. After Shakur's prison sentence, the Thug Life artist joined the Death Row family, working with artists new and old, large and small, and repping the crew as hard as any of the original members. DJ Quick, who joined Dre and Suge as a Compton native, appeared with inmates at the 1995 Sort Awards, and he contributed production, soundtrack singles, and compilation work to the movement. Death Row was topping the charts and consciously of rap music between 1992 and 96. Yep, around that time, 92 to 96 was when they were like on top, you know. While Death Row Records company was all done during the late 90s and 2000s, following the death of Tupac and the incarceration of Suge, the legacy of the family prevailed. Dre Up in Smoke's tour, Snoop's No Limit Top Dog, and the Pound's Cali is Active involved the crew and the spirit. As he done leaving NWA, Dre brought his cohort with him visually and spiritually for Still Dre and the 2001 album and the Aftermath Entertainment label. 30 years after the movement launch, Snoop acquired Death Row in 2022, announced just days before he and Dre headlined the Super Bowl halftime show along Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, Mary J. Blige, and others. Since then, the Dog Pound, Rage, and RBX have stepped forward with their supergroup, The Inmates. The Dog Pound has reportedly returned to release more music, and Dre and Snoop at work on the Doggy Style, the Matic sequel, Missionary. Just like 1992, the Death Row family is back and everyone is celebrating. Wow, I can't believe I got through that whole story. But it's crazy, right? So they were in this tournament. Now, I read some of the labels that were on there. Big labels. And it doesn't matter if it's from the older labels or the newer labels. What I like about this is the fans got to put in their 2 cents. This is who I think. This is why I think it is. And they gathered up all that information, came up with the whole tournament system. And the ones who prevailed at the end of the day was Death Row family. And who did they go up against? Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Clan, boy. That's a tough one. Because Wu-Tang, I mean, number one, let's start off with how many members they had. Just in the group by themselves, they had a lot of members. A lot of good, great MCs, man. They were chopping it up, and they came with the East Coast flavor with a twist. I mean, you heard that old kung fu, you know what I'm saying? The swords and, you know, all that stuff. And they made that cool, you know what I'm saying? And the solo projects that they came out with, they were very successful. They had a whole movement. Everywhere you went, you saw the logos on T-shirts, on hats, on everything. They had a whole brand. It was very successful. Death Row Records too, man. Now, I know they didn't give Tupac Shakur #1. They gave it to another artist, greatest of all time. But in my opinion, I've always said here on the show, Tupac will always be #1 no matter what. So you have Tupac on that group. Dr. Dre, I don't know where you put him as far as producer. He's definitely in your top 5. I don't care what you say, what generation. He's definitely in the top 5. He might not be your #1. He might be your #2 or 3, but he's up there for sure. That's a debate for another day. So you got that mega producer, right? Snoop Dogg, man, forget it, bro. He's still relevant to this day. He's in all kinds of things. And then you mentioned all the other names as well. Yeah, I give it to him. I definitely give it to him. Salute. I think that's a good call. BET.com, you know what I'm saying? They put together this tournament. Deathrow family won at the end of the day. So salute to you.